Good morning, chapter 23. The docking bays opened and the Sunfire sailed out on the other side of the space gate. The wall was behind them now. Ahead on the crackling vidscreen was Lucky's first sight of Axis space. Flash! A searing pulse of light scorched his eyes. It didn't come from the space gate or any of the shadow ships guarding it. It came from somewhere else, somewhere deep in distant space. It was the same kind of pulse he'd seen through the space wall, but now no longer filtered through the wall of green fire. He could see its true colour. It was blinding magnesium white, like a crack of lightning across the black. The Sunfire rocked as a shockwave knocked it sideways. Lucky held onto his seat with white knuckles. If he hadn't been strapped in tight, he would have been hurled out and smashed onto the floor. "Hold on, everyone," the captain's voice crackled on the comm. "Frolix, all power to the dark matter drive." With a great surge of energy, the Sunfire righted itself, stabilised, picked up speed, and soared into space, back into its element once more. Lucky breathed out with relief. His skin tingled at the sensation of the dark matter drive kicking in. He looked over to Bixer, but she didn't seem happy at all. "Mystica," she called up at the comm. "Are you okay?" No response. "Hold on, I'm coming," she shouted, leaping from her seat, racing out of the cabin. Lucky followed her down to Mystica's cabin. Through the grand arched doorway he could see the old lady huddled up in bed. She was shivering beneath her furs, teeth chattering. Professor Bazantine was there beside her, bazooka on his shoulder, tending to the candles that lit the cabin. There was something about Mystica that looked very strange, but Lucky couldn't put his finger on what it was. And then he realised her headscarf had come off, and without the scarf he could clearly see that the old lady had hardly any hair left, just a few thin white wisps beneath which he could clearly see a pale skull. Nice use of some prepositions there. "I'm sorry," said Mystica, flustered. She quickly pulled a scarf on. "It's so ugly. You shouldn't have to see such things." Lucky almost didn't go into the cabin. He felt like he was intruding. But she waved him in with a weak smile. "Come in," she said. "It's always good to see you, even if it's not so good to see me." Lucky felt embarrassed. All he wanted to do was make it better for her somehow. "Mystica," he said as he went in, "there is no one I would rather see. I missed you so much at the space gate." "I missed you too." She held out her hand and he took it. Her skin was deathly cold, like ice. "Stay a while," she said. "I feel warmer when you are here. There are such terrible things going on in this galaxy. Did you see that flash of light as we came through the wall?" She looked down gravely. "That was a star dying." Lucky flinched. The thought was too horrible. "How can you tell?" "Those flashes are supernova pulses," said the professor. "To a star talker, they are like death throes, the desperate screams of someone facing the end of their life." Lucky could feel Mystica's hand shaking as tremors surged up from deep inside her, but her voice stayed calm, betraying not a hint of pain. "Until now," she said, "their source was hidden by the space wall, so we couldn't tell their origin. But now there is no doubt. A star is dying, and not just any star." She shut her golden eyes. It was like night falling from her face. "It is the star I am connected to. The star at the centre of the Aquarius system. I feel everything the Aquarius star feels. I cannot help it. Our destinies are linked. So I know my star is dying because—" She took a deep breath and opened her eyes again. "Because I know that I am dying." "What?" It felt like someone had reached into Lucky's chest and squeezed his heart. Bixer shook her head, her eyes burning. "I don't believe it, Mystica," she said. "You can't be dying. You're ill, very ill, but—" "Not ill, my dear. Dying." "No," said Bixer. Her needle's almost black. "It doesn't make sense. Aquarius still has millions of years left to shine. It's nowhere near time for it to go supernova." "I cannot explain it," said Mystica. "I do not understand why it is happening, but I feel it in my bones, and so does the professor. Don't you feel it too?" "I don't feel a thing," growled Bixer. Mixer was seized by another fit of coughs, deep, racking coughs that tore her apart from inside. "There must be a cure," said Lucky. "Every illness has a cure." Mystica shook her head, exhausted. "This is no illness. It is the suffering of the star that I feel. If only we knew what the wolf was. It is connected, I am sure. My star will only survive if the wolf is stopped, and only then, perhaps, will I—" Our best hope lies in finding the 12 Astraeus, said the Professor. What say you, Mystica? Do you feel their presence? I'm not sure. The Professor twisted his whiskers. I'm positive they are somewhere this side of the wall. We should start to search for signs, out there amongst the stars. Of course, said Mystica. Bixer, can you get us a clear view of space? Silently, Bixer turned away from her grandmother and tapped on the vidscreens, bringing up a flickering image of the view outside. They squinted through the static, but there was too much interference to see anything clearly. May I? Said Professor Bazantine. It's my experience there is only one thing to do with this kind of technology. He approached the wall screen and gave it a hefty thump. The image flickered, crackled and finally cleared. I wonder if any of your parents try that with equipment at home. The Professor smiled at his handiwork, but on the vidscreen now all they could see was empty space, a lightless black void. The Professor's fingers flicked over the screen, bringing up many different views. He peered through his spectacles, examining all possible angles as he searched for signs of the 12 Astraeus. What are we looking for exactly? Said Lucky. Are they really like those people on the vidpics, the gods with the flaming swords and lightning bolts and everything? Those images are based upon ancient legends, said the Professor. The legends are incomplete, only fragments remain. And different cultures had different legends. Some thought of the Astraeus as immortal gods. Others saw them as stars who came down from the sky to walk amongst us for a while. So it is hard to be sure of anything. All we can say with certainty is that these were beings of unimaginable power, capable of destroying worlds or creating them. Lucky looked hard at the vidscreens, for he too was beginning to hope for the return of the 12 Astraeus. If they really were as powerful as the Star Talkers believed, then perhaps they would be the ones to make everything okay. But there seemed to be no trace of them as yet. Captain Knox came into the cabin looking very serious. How are you, Mystica? He said. I'm so sorry about that shockwave. I did my best. The old lady managed a small smile despite her pain. I'm fine, my dear, and thanks to Lucky here, the horrors of the wall at least are behind us. The captain turned to Lucky, a dark look in his eyes. How did you persuade those shadow guards to release us anyway? He asked. Lucky's heart thumped. This was it. No avoiding it any more. He didn't want to lie to his friends, but the President had left him no choice. The shadow guards knew my father, he said carefully, sticking as close to the truth as he could. They let me go so I'd have a chance to find him. Seriously? Said Bixer. Wow, he must be important. Yeah, Lucky took a deep breath, and I discovered something. I overheard them saying he was being held at an Axar army base on a planet called Charon. They all started at him like he'd said something unspeakably foul. Charon? Said Bixer. You sure you heard right? Because that's like saying hell. It's a place people whisper about in their nightmares, somewhere you scare kids with. If you're not good, you'll end up in Charon caves. Lucky felt the ground shift under his hooves. Really? Well, do you know where to find this planet, Charon? Of course not, said Captain. No one even knows if it's real. You have to ask the army to get the truth, because I don't believe there's a civilian who knows it. Oh, Lucky's heart was sinking. But Mystica and Professor exchanged a glance. There isn't a possibility, said Mystica. Someone else who might know. Who? Asked Lucky, clutching a hope. And I'll stop part 1 there.